Medieval Dynasty lets you live out the fantasy of surviving and building your own village in probably one of the darkest times in Europe, immersing you in this RPG life simulator with a touch of village management. This game perfectly blends all of these genres, creating this unique survival experience. This game made me rethink about life because I never expected to spend so much time hunting, gathering, and building my village, facing off against wolves, bears, and bandits along the way. Today I'll be sharing how I spent 5 years surviving, thriving, and building my legacy in Medieval Dynasty. The game kicks off with a cutscene that sets the stage for our character's journey. A caravan trudges along a muddy road, its passengers chatting about some guild that's paying them to travel or deliver something important. At this point, we don't really know yet. But before they can reach their destination, chaos erupts. A band of ruthless bandits ambushes them, and the scene quickly turns into a bloodbath. Amid the carnage, we're introduced as one of the prisoners, or maybe even a slave to these unlucky travelers. Peeking out, we witness the slaughter unfold. Just when it seems like my fate is sealed, the bandit leader spares our life. We don't really know why he did this. Maybe he's got a soft spot for stragglers, or maybe he just wants to send a message.
Try not to die, Bernie. You got a message, don't you?
Either way, we're alive for now. I woke up in a strange house. Turns out I'd been brought to a town called Piastovia. A quest marker popped up pointing me toward a man named Castellan, the guy who found me half dead and decided that was worth saving. After a quick chat, he gave me a medieval version of a pep talk and sent me on a quick rehabilitation mission. Basically, it was just a tutorial quest disguised as a chance to prove I wasn't completely useless in the game. That being said, I'll admit I got a little confused by the quest marker at first, because I spent almost 10 minutes trying to find the chest that they said that was in the house. Turns out I was wrong. The chest was at a different quest marker. Anyways, I shrugged it off and just followed the quest instructions. Honestly, it felt like the game was just testing me how well I could follow directions. Once I finished the tutorial quest, I was directed to speak with the Castellan, Mirror God. Also, I would like to apologize for possibly butchering some of these names. I'm not European, so I'm not really sure how to pronounce them. And here I met the Castellan. He was, well, definitely fits the medieval lord archetype. Arrogant, dismissive, and quick to remind me of my place by calling me a peasant. But here's the kicker. It turns out he was the one who hired the caravan, and the whole reason we were on that ill-fated journey? To build a new settlement for him. So not only did I survive a bandit ambush, but now I'm stuck working for the guy who indirectly caused the whole mess. Life in the Middle Ages, folks. It's never simple. I was then sent to talk to the quartermaster, Darwin, to get the full scoop on our mission. Apparently, the area we're in right now, Oxbow, is basically a medieval soap opera. The villages are all each other's throats, and no one seems to like anyone else, so Mirror God, our resident goofball lord, came up with the brilliant idea of starting a new settlement to give himself an edge. Honestly, for a guy who calls me a peasant, it's not the worst plan. I mean, it's not great, but hey, at least he's trying. Before setting off from the town, they gave us some supplies in the chest that we opened earlier. Unfortunately, I couldn't carry everything because apparently, even in these times, inventory management is a nightmare. Now, there is a setting to turn carry weight off, but I'm not a pussy. I decided to stick to the essentials: tools, weapons, and food. After getting everything sorted, I felt ready. My first task was to find the perfect spot for our new settlement. Scanning the map, I noticed an area just west of the town that looked promising. It had water nearby, which is essential, and even some road network. Basically a prime free real estate. Without wasting any more time, I set off on what turned out to be a treacherous journey. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I reached the spot. It was perfect. To kick off the mission, I needed to build a few essential buildings to get this settlement started. Then, it was time to gather materials. As I surveyed the area, I started chopping down trees, collecting sticks, and picking up stones along the way. But the vast plain made it hard to decide where to begin. It took me a while to find one, but as the sun began to set, I finally made up my mind. I'd built my first house on top of this hill, but time was running out though. I set up a campfire and began frantically gathering materials, running back and forth to make progress. By the time it got dark, I'd done as much as I could. Luckily, the campfire lets you sleep on the ground. Also, editor's note, turns out sleeping isn't even necessary in this game. But yeah, I didn't know it at that time, so it took me about 2 in-game games to figure it out. As soon as I woke up the next day, I got straight back to work on the house. The only thing left to finish was the roof. which required straw, and to get straw, I needed reeds. Thankfully, there was a creek nearby where I'd spotted some earlier. While gathering reeds, I noticed a few moose grazing in the distance, and I thought, why not take a shot? Bad idea though. Those things were elusive, so I gave up and settled for a small crow instead. Once I got back, I hammered down the remaining resources. Not exactly a palace, but it's a cozy home. With the house complete, it was time to move on to the next project, building a well. This would save me the hassle of trekking to the creek every time I needed water. From there, it was back to the usual, gathering materials, building, and repeating the cycle until the well was finally set up. So I decided to plan ahead and build a second house for our first future citizen. I placed it next to mine. From there, it was the same cycle, gather, build, repeat. But as I worked, I noticed something unpleasant. So I needed to take a shower. Luckily for me, the creek was nearby and I wasn't about to walk miles to the next river. As I made my way there, I dipped in, but then I realized the water wasn't deep enough to wash properly. So I decided to skedaddle out of there, but that's when I heard it. Oh no. Oh god. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. Oh. Damn it. Miraculously, I woke up, but my stats were in the gutter. Still, I needed that shower, so I dragged myself to the river, hoping this time I wouldn't run into any more surprises. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I returned to the village and put the finishing touches on the second house. There it stood, a cozy little home. Stepping outside, I took a moment to admire the village. It was peaceful, in a way that made all the hard work feel worth it. I headed to bed, ready to pass the time and see what the next day would bring. I started day 3 with a plan in mind, so I decided my villagers would need a workplace. In this case, a woodshed, a place where they could gather wood, sticks and firewood, saving me from the endless grind of doing it myself. But to make that happen, I'd need more villagers. That meant another trip back to the town. It was going to be a lot of work, but hey, Rome wasn't built in a day. Once the shed was finished, it was time to prepare for my journey back to Piastovia to hire some willing volunteers. Once I arrived, I stopped by the market and noticed a quest marker. The man offered me a job, plant some beetroot and bring him the harvest in exchange for some extra coin. Sounded like a good deal to me. He then handed me over 16 beetroot seeds to start out. Returning to my main mission, I got lost for a bit. I realized they weren't in the town at all. Instead, they were camped outside, just chilling. I decided to hire one guy for now and head back to the village to work on building a farm. Immediately, I got to work on it. It was here that I realized that you actually needed a fertilizer, which you can only get from a barn builder, something which I hadn't unlocked yet. Frustrated with that fact, I decided I had to make the torturous journey back to Piastovia to look for fertilizer. And with the sun setting, I sprinted all the way back to the town. My life depended on it. When I finally reached the town, I hurried to the market, desperate to find some fertilizer. Nope. Nope. And just as I was about to lose hope, the last vendor I spoke to had some. All I had to do now is head back to my village, plow the land, and sow those beautiful seeds. And just as I finished, my first spring came to an end. I knew this was only the beginning. There was still so much to do, but in that moment, it felt like the start of something truly grand. Summer has arrived, bringing a new challenge, temperature. Now, I had to stay cool in the heat. I decided I will spend this season working on the village, building and expanding despite the weather. There was no time to waste, because things are about to ramp up. First, I built a workshop to craft buckets, which I would later need for our village's water supply. To be honest with you, I'd been neglecting that for too long. Gathering in the heat was tough. My character would not stop bitching and complaining.
Damn, it's hot.
It was getting annoying. Later that day, I went hunting and exploring. I took down some rabbits, improving my bow skills. Then, I jumped in the river to cool off and shut my character up about the heat. That's when I found an abandoned building. Inside, I found coins, wool, and other items that I could sell back in town. Not bad. To keep the village growing, I built a hunting lodge and made some buckets for our water supply to make sure my villagers' needs are finally met. It was getting dark, but I headed to town to sell loot and buy some essential. But unfortunately, most of the vendors were asleep. Oh, you motherfucker, you're asleep. So I took a quest from the bulletin board just to give myself something to do in the meantime. I also took this woman with me to join us in our village. And before you say anything, no, that's not what it is. When I got back to the village, night had fallen. I spent the time doing chores like roasting meat until sunrise. But let's take a quick pause for a moment. Mistakes happen, right? Because I want to talk about something that I've been doing wrong this first few hours. First, I dug up the stumps after cutting trees. Big mistake. If you leave them, they grow back after 2 in-game years. So basically, I screwed myself by digging them up. Second, I picked skills without planning. I didn't know skill points are limited, and you can't really unlock everything. So I had to plan out my build carefully moving forward. Third, I didn't have much of a plan, as I spent most of the time trying to figure out a lot of the game mechanics. Also, don't hunt these things too early in the game.
Oh no, he's coming. Okay, run. Okay, gotta get away. Oh.
So you're probably asking, what's the point of a sandbox game when you can't even do anything right? And what are the things that you're supposed to be doing? Well, I don't really know, to be honest with you. But right now, our main focus is to explore, hunt, get rich, and focus on building our village. Day 2 of summer has started. I spent the day finishing the hunting lodge, then went back to town for supplies. I also finished up the quest that I picked up from last night, which is basically just deliver sticks. They only give me a few coins, but I got dynasty reputation. Now these things are actually very important, because more rep means more villagers. I also traded and bought a hat to help with the heat. Next, I decided to explore further and headed to the next town, Skavri, which was closer to my village. Along the way, I picked up loot and hunted a bit. When I arrived, I didn't learn much. But I met a woman who needed help with her child. She claimed that he had been possessed, but after talking to the kid, it turned out he was just having a little bit of fun by pretending to be a chicken. I decided to join in and was given a quest to help him collect feathers and eggs. It was a small task, but it felt good to be part of something lighthearted. I didn't have enough of what the kid needed, so I would have to come back the next day to complete this. On the way back, I ran into a bit of a problem and may have accidentally started a wildlife massacre. Don't blame me, they started it. I spent the rest of the night gathering for a new building, a resource storage. And let me tell you, these buildings are a game changer. Not only do you get a lot of storage space, but if you build them anywhere in the map, the storage is universal. You'll be able to access anything that you put in it. As the sun rises in the horizon, I began hammering down the resource storage. Once built, I began organizing my items and placing them in a resource storage so that they can be universally used by our villagers. With the structure built, it was time to add another house to the village. I had unlocked a larger version of the simple house and placed it right next to the storage. More houses means more villagers, and more villagers means progress. It's all coming together. I headed back to town to buy and sell more essentials, picking up a poison arrow along the way. This will prove to be useful as hell too. Then I returned to Skavri to finally complete the kid's quest. The reward? A huge boost to my dynasty reputation, and obviously this amazing emote as well. It's the little victories that make it all worthwhile. Before heading back to the village, I decided to pick up another villager. The house wasn't finished yet, so I had to rush back, but not without looting the remaining of the massacre I had the other day.
Well, nothing goes to waste around here.
Once back, I got to work on building again. It took me an entire day to gather materials and finish the structure. Afterward, I reassigned the residents to make sure everything was organized. As night fell, I did a few more chores and then headed to bed, ready for the next season. Autumn has begun, and the beetroots were ready to harvest. I headed straight to Piastovia to complete the vendor's quests. Along the way, I was hunting down a deer, but as I tracked it, a wolf attacked me.
Excuse me, sir, I don't have time for you.
I barely escaped, but I managed to claim my kill. A close call, but a victory nonetheless. A good start to the season. I got back on track and soon returned to the vendor to turn in the beetroots. I also offered him help with his rhymes. Then I sold the rest of my harvest, bought supplies, and finally got a backpack for extra carry weight. This would make hauling logs much easier. But while I was organizing my inventory, I noticed something that I've been carrying, a burnt note. I guess some things just slip your mind when you're busy building a village. I returned to the village to continue working. Honestly, I don't even remember what I was doing here. It seemed like I was just juggling tasks as usual. The rest of the day was spent gathering materials for a new building, a food storage. Like the resource storage, it's incredibly useful, but this one keeps food from spoiling. By now, I'd learned not to dig up stumps, but the trees seemed to retaliate. Ow. Damn you trees. No! Oh good. I also knew sleeping wasn't necessary, but I decided to pass time for a bit because sometimes, even in a busy village, you need a moment to breathe. Day 2 began with more wood gathering. Until I get another work shed, this is my life. But finally, after all the effort, the food storage was built, one step closer to a thriving village. Next, I decided I would plan out the village for a bit by placing down roads and the blueprints for now. But my priority was getting another village to boost my wood production, because we need a lot of logs. So I finished the house, built the work shed, and added a herbalist hut. I haven't used it yet at this point, but it's there, I guess. As the night fell, I became a wooden spoon tycoon, crafting spoons to sell later. Then, I went to Piastovia again to recruit a villager, because midnight is the best time to look for immigrant workers. I then assigned them to work, and then looked for a vendor to buy my stockpile. Back to the village I went, going back to the usual gathering, because the grind never stops. As the sun rose, I started building a kitchen, which would unlock more cooking recipes. I knew I wouldn't be able to unlock everything just yet, but it was a step forward. Then, I headed back to town I've already went back to town like a million times. I headed back to town to buy and sell some more supplies, but no one was around. So I explored around the town a bit and found a mine nearby. I'll come back to it later. It's useful. After I was done with my shopping, it was here that I made my way to the third town, Clonica. Clonica? I don't really know. Along the way, I hunted down a moose, looted a bit, and stumbled upon an eerie abandoned house with a dead body inside. This doesn't look right. Oh hey, cool, arrows. Is there anything else around here? That scared the shit out of me. Moving on from that, I met a guy named Elry, but he seems kind of off. So I noped out of there and headed to Clonica. Whatever. There, I met Milibor, an old man who needed food and medicine. His son, Radzim, had promised to help him, but had been gone for a while, so I stepped in. Apparently, I'm a DoorDasher now in the Middle Ages. As I go through my delivery service, I noticed something was off. So I went ahead and confronted the son, Radzim, and turns out he was just trying to sabotage everything. I didn't really want any of this family drama around, so I just went back to Milibor and just told on him like a bitch. So I left the family drama behind and headed back to the village. Winter was approaching and the year was about to end. There was still much to do, but for now, it was time to close out the season. Winter's here, and it's cold. I got a hunting event which I spent coins to gain some hunting experience. At the start of the day, I had no winter gear, and to avoid dying from hypothermia, I went to town, sold items, and bought warm clothes. Problem solved. Next, I decided to explore again, this time heading south into unknown lands. This season, I decided that I would make a lot of money, and so I hunted and looted as much as I could, gathering materials for processing and selling. Along the way, I encountered a strange man selling beetroots in the middle of nowhere. You never know what you'll find out here. I returned to Piastovia to sell what I'd gathered during my trip. While I was there, I spoke to the king's herald who had a task for me. However, seeing that it offered me no benefit to the village, I decided to ignore it for now. With that, I headed back to focus on building up the village once more. The kitchen was done, and day 2 flew by. I tried out some new recipes, and then went hunting again. Leveling up meant picking skills carefully, because who wants to mess up their build? Not me. More hunting, which means more leather and more fur. I went back to Piastovia and had a little chat with our favorite motherfucker Castellan. Turns out, he's been hiding the bandit problem in Oxbow. And yeah, that's pretty much what I cared to know. I grabbed a quest from the bulletin board and went back to hunting. The grind never stops. Back in our village, I made a few adjustments. Then, as you guessed it, more hunting and more gathering. Such is life in the Middle Ages. Day 3 arrived, and I headed to Piastovia to take on a quest to hunt wolves. Unfortunately, I wouldn't finish this one in time because I couldn't find them anywhere, and when I finally did, they were already dead. So, I just returned to village to continue working on its development, and just like that, the last day of the year was about to end. To be honest, not much happened this season. Most of the time was spent hunting, exploring, gathering, and managing the village. You know, the usual gameplay loop. Now, there are a lot of systems in the game I haven't even touched yet. But for now, I started crafting products for profit. I realized it was the time to make better use of all the materials I gathered by processing and selling them. It's all about efficiency now. At the end of it, I started building a sewing hut and a smithy. Finally, I'll have clothes, bags, and metal tools. Stuff that would have been great earlier. Also, I am aware that this video is already almost 20 minutes long. So in the next following years, we're just gonna focus on the important stuff, especially the quests. And I know this season wasn't exciting, but hey, I've got more years left in the game. Plenty of time to make up for it. And just like that, our first year was all over. And like I said before, this was just the beginning. Spring arrived, and I reflected on the progress I'd made with the village in the first year. It wasn't bad, but it was time to take things more seriously. My first priority was increasing the log supply. Even with 2 sheds, the output couldn't keep up with the village growing needs. I could spend more hours cutting down trees myself, but I wanted wood production to be automated. It was also time to pay taxes, so I headed to town. There, I met our beloved Castellan, looking as smug as ever. After paying up, I went to the nearby cave to mine some more copper for better tools. To save some time, I decided to build a resource storage nearby instead of walking all the way back. And after taking the whole day to finish up the storage, I emptied the cave as much as I could and then headed back to the village. It was time to focus on building a farm to start producing beetroots. I also began upgrading some of the houses to stone, which would boost the villagers' mood. The happier they are, the more they produce. As spring neared its end, I crafted more products, went hunting, and did some more trading to keep things moving forward. Progress in the village continued as I built an excavation shed. Now, I could automate the gathering of stone and other resources, something that I should have done earlier to be honest. However, I realized I was still struggling to produce enough wood to keep up with the village's growth. It's been a consistent problem. I needed to figure out a solution soon, or progress would continue to stall. With the summer season underway, I traveled back to the mine to gather more metal ores. Once I had enough, I returned to craft better tools, which would make tasks easier. I started cutting down even more trees to help with the shortage, but it felt like an endless cycle. Every time I thought I was making progress, I'd run out of resources and have to focus on something else. At the same time, I was struggling with coins. Unlocking new buildings and upgrades required more money than I had. It was this constant battle against scarcity. It was here when I went out to hunt for fur and leather, but the wolves decided to teach me a lesson.
Okay, I think I'm good. Yep.
The struggle is real, no resources, and I'm getting my ass handed by these wolves. Maybe I just suck at the game, but I kept going. I made some pouches from the leather that I got from hunting to sell for profit. Then I went back to Piastovia and picked up more villagers. On the last day of summer, I took a tavern quest to retrieve stolen mugs. First, it was Solibower who wanted honey, and I had to go fetch him one. Then Rakignu, this kid's name, called this mug Rabbit Princess. Sure kid. Next, it was Moslaw who made me play a drinking game. I got drunk and stumbled around looking for Posnamir's lost mug, or the tavern's lost mug. It wasn't until later that I realized that I could have used my inspector vision to find them faster. Top-notch quality gameplay here, guys. And just like that, the season was over. This year hasn't started too well for me. I was still struggling with many of the game's mechanics, but I reminded myself that there's still a long way to go. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow and learn, and I finally got my priorities straight. Finally harvested a ton of beetroots, because farming is definitely the moneymaker right now. But I had to put farming on hold for now. It was off to Piastovia again, to sell off the beetroots. But seriously though, how many times I've went back and forth here? I finally went back to the King's Herald and took on their task. It turns out I had to collect over 1,000 goddamn berries. And it's autumn too, so I have to wait up until the next summer to start. Seriously, who comes up with these kinds of quests? It was time to progress further into the story, which meant traveling to the last town in Oxbow, which I hadn't visited yet. Piastovia. I think this time I actually pronounced it correctly. As I looked over the hill, I saw the town perched on top of a lake. It was a beautiful sight. Once there, I took on a quest from a woman frustrated about someone littering near the lake. Going there was a mysterious note with a list of items to place in the basket. Questline then leads me to find the youngest person in the village. But turns out it's just another fetch quest for this kid. Still had errands to run, so I decided to come back the next day just to finish the task. For now, I focused on increasing my log supply and gathering more copper for future crafting. And thank God for this resource storage. It saved me a lot of trips back to the village. But while I was also hunting for deer, I was ambushed by wolves.
Oh, not again. I think I'm dead. Yeah.
I thought I was being cautious, but apparently not enough. And here I was brought all the way back to the goddamn village. Damn it. So for now, I finally made use of the herbalist hut, crafting potions, then made a ton of arrows. Over 100 in fact. That's when it hit me. Hey, I could sell these. After the long trek back to Piastovia, I bought the toy, then finally used the wagon for fast travel between towns. Still expensive at this point of the game, but it saved me a lot of time. Gave the kid what he wanted and followed the note's instructions, leaving a bunch of fish as requested. Back at the village, I discovered a mine much closer than the one I'd been using. I couldn't help but wish that I'd found this earlier. It would have saved me countless trips. For the rest of the season, I crafted poison arrows, then spent more time hunting and even tried fishing for the first time. As the season drew to a close, I made sure to take revenge on the wolves that caused me so much trouble.
I'm on the hunt now. Come here. Oh, this is too easy. Here's another one here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, he's dead. Let's go get it. Oh shit. There's another one. Oh, damn, there's a lot of them. Oh, he dead. He dead. Oh, fuck. Damn. Damn. Oh, crap. Die, you filthy wolves! That's right.
What a fitting way to end the season. Winter was mostly about running errands and hunting, but the winter was much colder than before. To cope with the freezing temperatures, I relied on the buff from drinking alcohol. It wasn't ideal, but it got me through the harsh weather. Back in Piastovia again, Darwin had finally gave me a task. Finally, the story progresses. So apparently his apprentice has messed up a few gift deliveries, so I had to fix it. This led me to a chain of errands running around the town. Nothing says fun like cleaning up somebody else's mess, am I right? I had to wait until the next day to finish the remaining tasks. I went back to hunting. I needed a lot of fur to craft into winter collars, which I could then sell for profit. Then, back at the village, I started working on building a farm, something I should have done earlier but had to postpone until the next spring. Then, I focused on processing coppers into bars and turning those bars into arrows to sell. Slowly but surely, things were coming together. I knew what I needed to sell and what to do next. At this point, I was brave enough to go back to the creek, where I once had my first death. I managed to take down a couple of moose. My progress was interrupted by my worst enemy of them all, the bear.
Oh, that's him. He's hauling ass over here.
I'm freezing.
Come here. Come here. Okay. I got him. I think I hit him. But he's running away now. Got nowhere to run, boy. Oh, there's another one there. Oh, he is dead, bro. He is dead. Or maybe not. Oh, damn. Oh, he's running away.
Claiming their fur as my prize, I had grown stronger and more capable. On the last day of this year, I returned to town to finally finish the quest with Darwin's incompetent apprentice. I fixed his mistake by delivering the gifts to the right people. They were not happy, but you know, whatever. The day winding down, I prepared for the next year by buying seeds and gathering more resources. Then, it was just a slow walk into the dark until the year was over again. It feels incredibly satisfying looking at our village and see how far we've come. A sprawling farm, villagers starting families, and a growing collection of buildings. It's a testament to all the hard work and effort I've put into this place. But wait, what is this? Did we skip time? Well, let me take you back to year 3 of our gameplay and see how we got here. Spring has always been my favorite season. A new year, a clean slate, and a fresh sense of adventure. This time, I had my priorities straight, and farming was at the top of the list. I started the year by plowing and sowing the fields, and one of the most important crops to plant is flax. It provides linen threads and fabric, essential for crafting recipes that I can later sell for profit. It's all about laying the groundwork for a prosperous year. I also made sure to hire a villager during the last winter to help with the farming workload. It would actually automate the entire process, leaving me to just do anything I want on the side. All I had to do was go into the management tab. With that taken care of, I headed back into the wilderness to hunt and gather whatever else I needed for the rest of the day. Meanwhile, I was back in Piastovia. I was tasked with helping Darwin's apprentice again, Lubos. This time, he was supposed to resolve a dispute between 2 villagers, but it didn't go too well. He ended up giving one of them an axe. I mean, it was a total disaster and Darwin was clearly growing tired of his antics. I decided to leave it at that and return to my usual routine of hunting and gathering for the rest of the day. Some problems are just better left untouched. Back at the village, I spent time crafting and upgrading buildings, steadily improving our little settlement. Every step felt like progress, no matter how small. On the 3rd day, it was time to pay my taxes, which were shockingly high. Thankfully, I'd been making decent amount of money from trading, so I paid off my debt quite easily. On the other hand, I decided to hunt the bear again for its valuable fur, but the encounter didn't go as planned as I ended up dying. Twice, in fact. So I'm just not gonna do that for now. Summer arrived, but a storm came and damaged several buildings in the village. I had dropped everything and focused on the repairs immediately. Oh my god, this is taking a lot of time. The flax was also ready to harvest, but I had my guy on it. One less thing to worry about while I fixed the village. Once I finished repairing the damages, I turned my attention to the flax. I processed them into seeds and stalks, and the stalks into linen threads, and the threads into linen fabric. Then, it was back to gathering and picking plants. This time, I decided to make use of potions, especially the healing potions. They would be invaluable during hunts, particularly when facing wolves. I gathered berries for the king's quest, but spoiler alert, I gave up on this quest much later. It was just way too much work and I had better things to do as of now. Sometimes you just gotta let it go, you know. It was time to help Darwin again with his apprentice, this time by fetching supplies for the townsfolk in Piastovia. I spoke to Lubos, who claimed he was feeling sick. I followed him into the meeting point, where the merchants would drop off the supplies, but as we walked, I started to feel something was off. Lubos seemed increasingly unwell, so I decided to just send him off. It was up to me to handle the supplies alone. Damn it, I fucking knew it. He set me up real good. Oh, he dodged that pretty well. Unfortunately, sir, you are going to die today. I'm sorry. Yep. Is there another one? Oh, there he is. Man, he is sprinting here. Down.
How do you do?
What the f? Okay, there's 2 archers out there. I'm just gonna snipe them from this position. Got one. Shot him. And he's dead. Man, he really set me up. After clearing the place overrun by bandits, the supplies were gone. I reported the issue to Darwin, who also thought there might have been an inside job within the town. I was directed to speak with Goraz, who informed me that the supplies had already been given to someone else in the town. The situation was more complicated than I'd imagined. It turned out Lubos, the little troublemaker, had given supplies to other townsfolk. So, Darwin and I decided to confront him. and a small feud erupted. I learned that Lubos's father had once been Darwin's partner in crime, and they had fought wars together. Their history had led to a bitter relationship between Lubos and Darwin, with Lubos resenting what had happened between them. This is honestly too much family drama for me. We learned that Lubos simply just wanted to prove himself and had grown tired of Darwin's menial task, and he had hoped for more meaningful responsibilities, but he ended up feeling like a delivery boy. Hey man, I know exactly how you feel. In the end, Lubos decided to leave town and find his own path. With all that drama behind me, I returned to my usual routine. I mined ores, gathered plants, and did some more hunting. And for the rest of the season, I focused on crafting a ton of linen products, which I would later turn into more valuable items to sell. One of which was the bag, a highly profitable product. And after running a few more errands in the town and adjusting some of the villagers' tasks, I returned to farming and planted cabbage seeds for the season. I continued doing chores around the village, hunting and smelting ores to craft more tools, and before I knew it, summer had come to an end. For the rest of the year, I shifted my focus entirely to building up the village. This meant constructing more houses and additional buildings. However, I was still short on logs, so I decided to solve the problem by cutting down a lot of trees along the way. First, I laid down some roads to organize the village, then placed 3 houses. After that, I focused on cutting down more trees to meet the log shortage. Finally, I unlocked the donkey shed, which meant I could soon get a mount to ride around Oxbow. Walking everywhere had been exhausting, so this would be a game changer. Next, I upgraded my farm's fences, giving them a more appealing design. After that, I spent the rest of the night crafting products to sell. The next day, I continued working on the houses I'd placed, hammering away to finish them. Then it was back to cutting even more trees, a cycle that repeated for hours. Finally, I made what I hope would be my last long walk in the game, heading to Skauki to buy a mount, a donkey to be more specific.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, our donkey. Saddle up. Yep. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, this feels good. I can go anywhere I want now.
And as the season drew to a close, I fell into a steady rhythm, cutting down trees, hammering buildings, and a bit of hunting.
There's a man out there walking. Oh shit, bandits. Shot him. Crap, he went into cover. I'm gonna go ahead and charge him. Oh, there's another one. Did I hit him? No? Oh, hey there. Alright. Bro, you are missing. I'm sorry, but you're dead. Yep. Did I kill the other guy? I'm not sure. I'm gonna go ahead and check it out. Oh, he is dead. Alright.
Winter was pretty much the same. I started hammering the remaining fences and buildings, finishing a couple of houses, and then upgrading some workshops. To boost the villagers' mood even more, I decided to move some of them into the newer and nicer houses. At night, I went to Piastovia to get more villagers, and then assigned them to empty houses and workshops. In the morning, I worked on buildings and thought about adding fences, but I hadn't unlocked a lot of the decorative stuff yet. So, I returned to town to sell some bags I'd crafted, making a significant amount of money in the process.
Have a good day.
While there, I decided to recruit one more villager to fill the empty houses, and to level up my diplomacy skill, I explored the romance dialogue options, and found myself intrigued by a woman named Mildreda. For now, I decided to focus on increasing her affection, strictly for the diplomacy skill, of course, guys. For the rest of the season, I returned to work on the village, more hammering, crafting, and managing resources. I also discovered that the donkey shed produced manure, or shit, which could be turned into fertilizer for farming. It was a useful addition to my growing list of tasks, but meanwhile, I continued trying to romance Mildreda, but my attempts were a bit of a failure, just like my life. I placed down a pigsty which would allow me to raise pigs and produce more shit for fertilizer. I also built a hen house to diversify the village's resources. And before the year ended, I made my way to Clonica to buy some pigs.
Alright, pigs, you all are coming with me. And I'm taking your entire family too.
I had hoped to accomplish more, but the season came to a close, marking the end of our 3rd year. Year 4 has arrived. Looking back, we've accomplished so much and learned even more. I'm completely hooked on this game, and with Year 5 approaching, I know the journey will come to an end soon. This year, I wanted to change things up. Instead of repeating the same cycle of gathering and hunting, I decided to focus on one of the game's major aspects, questing. I completed a lot of quests this year, often simultaneously, and their stories range from short and quirky to deeply intriguing. To avoid confusion, I'm going to be sharing some of these tales. So, buckle up, this year's stories are worth telling. One of the first quests I encountered was with Tomila, a resident of Piastovia. She told me that today would be the day that changed the world. She was so sure that she invented a revolutionary game called Stone Parchment Shear, which, let's be honest, is just a medieval rock paper scissors. And her request? To gather the 3 titular items for her grand reveal. I mean, who am I to judge? This could be a real world-changing invention, right? The first item was a special stone from Bronislaw, who lived in Skalki. Without hesitation, I set off for the town, curious about what made this stone so unique. And unrelated to the quest, I stumbled upon a weird chest right in the middle of the bridge. Inside I found nothing but words of wisdom. Apart from that, nothing really happened and I didn't really care at that point. Then, I took the so-called special stone from Bronislaw. Next, I needed to return to Piastovia to acquire the parchment for this game. Tomila had suggested the notice board would be the easiest source, though it meant I had to tear one off. Reading some of it was weird. The first note says, "Looking for a devil with multicolored eye that defiled my daughter and ran away before fulfilling the promise of marriage. Coin prize awaits." I mean, the guy's probably black. I mean, it's long gone and is unlikely to come back. The second note was even stranger. "I don't care who reads this. I'm in love with my shovel and I'm not..." Oh, well, I think I left this note. And the final note also read, "Please stop stealing my bottle plugs. I worked hard to collect them, dreaming that they'd become a currency someday. Though that hasn't happened yet." If you don't get it, it's a subtle Fallout reference. With the parchment now in my hand, I figured no one would miss that old notice. As for which one I chose to tear off, well, I'll leave it up to you to think about it. Finally, I headed to Astoria to find Swebora, who was supposed to have the old pair of shares for Tomila, but I went there and spoke to her and she couldn't remember where she put them. Luckily for me, I had a Witcher-like Inspector vision, and I just used it. Thank God for this supernatural abilities. With the shears finally found, I delivered everything to Tomila. She was thrilled and declaring that SPS fever would sweep the land. Naturally, I humored her with one game and promptly lost. Though I might have lost this round of SPS, I think that the lesson to be learned here is I don't fucking know. This was probably one of the more pointless quests, to be honest. The end is near. Death will come from the swamp, and I am the chosen one to save these people. An ancient evil is rising from the swamp, and it is my duty to warn the people of Piastovia, as this man claims. So I met this lunatic just standing at the notice board. He gives me a task to warn the residents of their impending doom. But yeah, why would I waste my time? So I went around the town spreading the news to the residents about the horrors of the apocalypse. Wake up, we're all gonna fucking die. Evil is upon us. Run while you still can. You're going to contract syphilis. The devil will devour us. After informing them of the apocalypse, I went back to the man. Here, he had tasked me to perform a ritual at the swamp to save us from the evils. But first I would need to gather the necessary items though. Rye, meats, perches, and stone. So, for now, I headed back to the village to collect the items. Oh shit, the apocalypse. Once I have the items, I was given instructions on how to perform the ritual. So, we gotta focus and remember them. Stone in the middle, left side above, fish, right side below, meat, then 2 rye on the left, then 1 on the right. Okay, I think I got it. Wait, what was it again? Focus, damn it. Stone in the middle, left side above, fish, right side below, meat, then 2 rye on the left and 1 on the right. Okay, let's go. And as I approached the large tree, I could feel the evil presence lurking. I hurried to the ritual spot to perform the instructions and oh fuck, what was it? So I forgot about the instructions and I just went ahead and guessed and hoped for the best. And that seemed to have worked. I didn't feel anything at all. Curious, I reloaded a save to see what would happen if I had done it correctly. And to my surprise, yeah, it was pretty much the same. I don't know if there was anything else to that or I just ended up doing this quest for this lunatic. But at the end, I can rest easy tonight knowing that I have at least done something good. In the town of Skauki, a man named Herb required our assistance. His wife, Rana, has succumbed to a fever. They had asked me to collect some badger lard and deliver them to Slawarina for the creation of a medicine. I initially suggested that they visit Sedowin for a more modern cure, but Herm protested, calling the man a lunatic. I kinda agree though, he is kinda weird. I set out to hunt a badger for its lard. Oh no, this is brutal. I just killed an entire family of badgers. Once I had what I needed, I headed to Slawarina in Piastovia to give the lards and have the medicine created. I returned to Herm and delivered the medicine the woman had prepared. As for what would have happened if I'd taken this to Sedowin instead, well, that's a mystery that I've never really solved. Herm asked me to return in a later time to check if the medicine had worked, and to my surprise,
Good mind food.
it did. Rana was fine, and that was the end of that quest. At the outskirts of Clonica, a woman and a child are out camping. The mother, Morgana, initially feared I meant them harm. I asked why I would do that, and she would tell me that since crossing the border, they had encountered so much trouble. Well, welcome to Oxbow, lady, the land of so-called freedom. She explained that her daughter had been kidnapped for ransom by a bandit who had repeatedly threatened them for coins. And eventually, the bandits stopped returning, and now they fear the worst. She told me that the kidnapper always came from the south, reeking of swamp. Following that direction, I found abandoned items on the bridge. Deeper into the marshes, the corpses of wolves. Examining the scene, it seemed like they'd been killed while trying to reach someone standing on that boulder, someone who had clearly trying to escape. Moving deeper into the swamp, I spotted two figures matching the description, one of them badly injured. Speaking to the wounded stranger, I learned this was Yagna, the alleged kidnapper. She'd actually rescued a child from a wolf attack, but now was dying from her injuries. With her last strength, she had asked me to return the child to her mother. Speaking to the girl, she was hesitant to leave the bandit behind. She insisted on saving the bandit and no amount of reasoning could sway her. In the end, I relented and I gave Yagna a healing potion. With Yagna stabilized, I escorted the girl back to her mother without any further incident. Along the way, she shared Yagna's story from her perspective. Like her, Yagna had been born into nobility but was kidnapped by looters and raised in their harsh lifestyle. But her group had been wiped out by someone claimed to be a protector of the valley, a nod to the other region in the game. Back at the camp, Morgana expressed her gratitude and handed me a bag of coins as a reward, but I did press her about why she hadn't just paid off the ransom initially. Well, let's just say she was just being a bitch about it, so I decided to leave it at that. I spoke to the girl one last time to say my goodbyes, but she had asked me for another favor. She wanted to give a farewell gift to Yagna, a drawing of the two of them together. So, I went ahead and returned to Yagna and gave her the parting gift. But Yagna didn't take it too well. In fact, she declared that she'd kidnap the girl again, though this time for the right reasons, I think. So, I gave her an axe and she was off. We'll never find out what happened, but I hope I didn't just unleash something terrible. Meet Gilbert, the leader of Skauki, who expressed gratitude towards me for helping several of his townspeople. But he does have worries about his son, Otker. He sensed the young man was involved in something troubling, and he hoped that I would uncover the truth. He then revealed that he's been a soldier in the Great War, lured to Oxbow by promises of glory and coins and women. As we spoke, I learned that Piastova was built on the king's orders to commemorate the war's victory, and actually Gilbert was on the other side, the losing side. To cut a long story short, Gilbert founded Skauki as a mining town to avoid imprisonment, striking a deal to supply Piastova with valuable ores. But after his wife's death, his relationship with Otkar soured into something bitter and strained. The quest led me to investigate his son's recent activities, starting with a visit to his mountain house. There I found a man named Dalton standing guard outside the doorway. He refused to let me in. It looks like I can pay him off easily though. I decided to help him with his problem by collecting debt for him, specifically Nazibor. So I went looking for him.
Pay up, bitch.
And just like that, Nazibor was easily pressed. Initially, he only had given me a half of what he needs to pay for, but intimidating him further made him give up his entire life savings. I don't feel bad. Sometimes it's necessary. Going back to Dalton, he honored his end of the deal. He let me into the room. Inside, I discovered a group of people and a cache of weapons. It was clear Otkar was planning something, and whatever it was not going to be peaceful. I reported the situation to Gilbert, who reacted with shock, obviously. He urged me to find Otkar quickly. First though, I needed to locate him. Gilbert suggested I speak with Helena. Then, Helena would just tell me that Otkar's just hanging around in Piastova, specifically in the tavern. Surprisingly. But while on my way, I realized that Otkar was actually on the way, or maybe I should have waited, I don't know. Regardless, I confronted him about the rebellion scheme, warning him that this is suicide, but the little rat was starting to piss me off, so I left him be and let him throw his tantrum. He reminded me of Lubos too, that little cunt. Next, I headed to the tavern to examine Otkar's scribblings. Reading his scribblings, I found out that he actually has a secret code for his gang. One hand washes the other. Though I suspect this might be bugged since the quest is actually saying that he should be there. I don't know. This quest is weird. There, it was time to undermine his entire operation by talking to his goons. First, it was Thomas, who was actually blackmailed by Otkar to join him. He claimed that he took a letter from him and had hidden it on the side of a mountain. So, as you guessed it, I had to go get it.
Alright, I guess it's time for us to take a hike. Okay, that didn't take too long.
Turns out the letter was just a poem. Seriously? Thomas then leaves the rebellion and went home without any question. Next was Bert. I had convinced him that we're conducting a special operation and that we need to look for a hidden place to talk. Naturally, he led the way to a mine that's been abandoned. That's where I tried to convince him to leave this ridiculous rebellion, and just like that, he did. Finally, it was just Wilhelm, who, funnily enough, recognized Otkar's incompetence, but still wanted to proceed with assassinating the king. But he wasn't doing it for Otkar's sake though, so I had to convince him to act alone. But first, Wilhelm had a request. He needed me to collect poison from a contact, and for that, I needed to find Elric in the swamp. Remember that guy? Yeah. When I finally tracked him down, I asked for the poison, but he insisted I try his concoction first. And the result? I was tripping balls. I'm just kidding though, it was just a nasty poison debuff. Not exactly the trip that I hoped for. And with Otkar's last loyal follower gone, it was finally time to confront him again. And unsurprisingly, he reacted exactly as expected, whining, ungrateful, and seething with resentment towards his father. In a fit of rage, he stormed off to confront his father himself, as if that would solve anything. Drama ensued between father and son, and I was just at the side, spectating with a popcorn on hand. The entire exchange got pretty ugly, with Otkar throwing Gilbert's dead wife into the mix, and Gilbert finally dropping the truth bomb on Otkar. Turns out, their entire heritage were barbaric savages, and just like that, Otkar had his whole reality shattered. Well, that will definitely keep him off the rebellion now. With the quest coming to an end, I would have to check the next season on what will happen next. After a year filled with questing, I returned to my village, and in between our adventures, I did work on our settlement. And just to summarize what I've done, I built more houses, added decorative touches, and laid down fences so that we can have these property lines between the houses. I think it's a nice touch. With these tasks complete, I felt ready to close the chapter for this year. Our final year in this playthrough has arrived. We've built a thriving settlement, completed some quests, and even dabbled in romance. But yeah, I'm still failing to rizz up Mildreda. I initially planned to just play 5 in-game years, and by the end, finishing up our village. However, what I hope would be a productive year turned into one of the most intense and eventful years I've had in this game. For this year, I had only one goal in mind. I needed to make our settlement as self-sufficient as possible. This meant I'd had to reorganize jobs, buildings, and residences. I'd also have to increase our production of raw materials, especially logs. We've had this problem since the beginning, and now it was time to finally solve it. First, I'd have to relocate 2 of the woodsheds to the outskirts, giving us a little bit more room to work with. I decided to build an additional one, just so that I could meet the demand and have plenty of surplus. Once finished, I placed an additional smithy where the woodsheds used to be. I would assign workers there to produce basic tools, ensuring that we would have steady supplies for our workshops. With both the woodsheds and smithy built, I needed more villagers. This meant I would have to build additional houses. For now, I planned only 4 for 4 workers. But before construction, I needed to ensure that I had enough resources to avoid going back and forth. After a bit of calculating, here's what I would need for the 4 houses. First, I would need 108 logs, then 306 stones, and 192 planks, which means an additional 96 logs. So, I got to work that night, cutting down trees and clearing an entire area before storing the logs. With that checked off, stone was next. Luckily, I had been mining extensively in the past and left the stones at the mine, so I just went back and picked them up and crossed stone off the list. That left one final task: planks. I set up the basic frameworks first, then went to the woodshed to cut the logs into planks. Finally, construction began on these houses. I spent the entire day completing them. Once finished, it was time to hire more villagers. Alright, who wants a job?
I'll work for food and water.
You're hired.
How is life treating?
And while there, I checked up on Gilbert and his son. So it seemed like they resolved their conflict and were beginning to reconcile with each other. Back at the village, I began making more crafts. My barter skill was at max. That meant I could buy raw materials for cheap, then craft them into tools, and then sell them for a higher profit. One of them was the bronze axe, which sells for 400 a pop. Easiest money flip. As summer arrives in Oxbow, I prepared for another season of progress, but something came up, a quest from Sedowin. So yeah, I haven't talked to the guy since we arrived in Oxbow, so this would be interesting. I set off with my donkey and traveled to town. Upon arriving, I made a bit of a detour to the markets, and I bought myself bronze armor since I had been earning good money this year. When I met Sedowin, he informed me that there was a situation developing in Piastovia. The Castellan mirror god had left the town, and his wife remained behind. Sedowin was tasked with preparing a calming potion for Biogoda. Yeah, that's her name. He asked me to gather 3 ingredients: essence of swamp, evergreen flower, and an unknown ichor. I don't know how to pronounce that. The essence of swamp was easy enough to find, and as you might have guessed, it was located in the swamp. And no, this time it wasn't from Elric. There was a pot just sitting in the middle of it, and I just needed a wooden vial to collect it. Fortunately, there was some in the abandoned building nearby. The unknown Ichor demanded a more involved pursuit. Sedowin's merchant contact waited on Oxbow's distant outskirts, so I set out on my donkey, traveling to distant areas I've never been before. The vast plains and new landscape were breathtaking, like a breath of fresh air. I thought about migrating my entire village here, but that will be a project for another time. For now, it was time to meet Sedowin's contact. When I reached the meeting point, he greeted me with suspicion, understandably. The man was initially cautious, but he agreed to cooperate. He asked me to find his companion, whom he had sent to wash an iron pan, and since then the companion hadn't returned, so here we go again. As I approached the location, I noticed 3 figures lurking in the distance. I realized they were bandits. After dealing with the bandits, I went to the waterfall and found that his companion had been killed. So, I just took the pan and returned it to the man. In exchange, he gave me the ingredient. The evergreen flower was the last ingredient I needed to collect. It was located far north near a strange area. I traveled there with my donkey. Upon arrival, I discovered an entire fortress, an unsettling sight. I sensed something evil lurking. But yeah, I had to resist investigating further because I had a task to do. So I went to collect the ingredient from the cliff below the fortress. I had everything I needed, and so it was time to head back to Sedowin. He informs me about a situation that's been brewing in Piastovia. It was here that I realized that this is going to be long. He explained that the residents had been experiencing some strange symptoms, mostly auditory hallucination followed by anxiety and paranoia. So it was now my task to investigate. Through conversations and overheard discussions, I confirmed this phenomena was real, affecting most residents, except for this kid who seemed to be making a reference to an anime. My investigation led me to inspect the Castellan's house where the symptoms appeared to be most severe. I didn't cover much there, but when I questioned the Castellan's wife, she proved just as arrogant as her husband, by the way. Though despite pressing the issue, I was dismissed. I returned to Sedowin and reported the symptoms were near the Castellan's residence. So I had to investigate further. After creating a bit of a distraction to get the Yogoda out of the house, I entered to inspect the premises. Searching the area, I discovered a trap door concealed beneath their rug.
Hell no.
What is this place?
I swear, if something jumps at me, I'm gonna shit my pants. Hello, is anyone out there? Okay. Ooh, I wonder if these were the missing supplies. God, that laugh scared the crap out of me.
I found an old man just lying here in this cave.
I keep losing 42. Is it?
Shit was getting weird. He had me fetch a couple of quests for him, cooking food, fixing the leak that was probably causing the town's stench, and giving him toys. But I learned nothing, so the man kept rambling until he finally dismissed me. I then left, trying to cover my tracks. Oh, hey Mirror God. Mirror God was shocked to see me there. I didn't care about his reaction, especially since he had an old man in his goddamn basement, who was apparently his own father, who had gotten ill and he just decided to lock him in his basement. So here's where it gets interesting, right? I discovered that the nearby towns and villages had been providing supplies under the belief that they'd been obligated to support his father's legacy. And when a royal decree came releasing them from this duty, Mirror God concealed it and continued demanding from them. And as he runs through his money, Mirror God made a deal with a businessman to operate freely in Oxbow. Turns out these men were bandits. Realizing his mistake, harboring unwanted criminals, he contacted the Builders Guild to construct a new settlement for an additional ally, the one I was part of. And unfortunately, the bandits ambushed us, and all my suffering traced back to this goofball's action. Justice had to be served, so I declared he must face judgment from his own people. And with that, the quest came to an end this season, and it had been a lot to process. Mirror God was banished from Piastovia, and now it was time to return to our regular schedule. Like it was nothing. But returning to the village should have brought peace. But my mind kept circling back to the Castellan's dumbass decision. Those bandits hadn't come by chance. They'd been invited. And that fortress that I found earlier, it all made fucking sense now. So, for the rest of the summer, I began preparing for a raid. When autumn arrived, a new Castellan needed to be appointed. So basically, Mirror God and his family was tragically killed by an angry mob. What a sad ending for them. I decided to propose Gilbert for the position. When I delivered the message, he accepted. However, I still had other matters to attend to. The preparation lasted until autumn before I was finally ready. But before diving our heads into that fortress, I needed to scout the area to gather a bit more information. Upon arrival, I carefully assessed the fortress's size, realizing a cautious approach was necessary. I returned to the village for a final preparations, practicing my sword techniques and archery. Then, I gathered all of my equipment, moving to the outskirts of the bandits' base. There, I waited until sunset, until it was time to attack. Alright, we gotta go in slowly here, on the side. Shot him. Oh, there's a guy here. Take him. Oh, he didn't die either. I may have attracted a lot of attention now. Yep. Alright. We're gonna pull out a little bit out of here. Let them come to me. Ah, fuck.
I'll crush you.
Yeah! Yeah! Oh, thank God for my shield.
And take everything.
Yeah! Alright, I gotta heal up real quick.
I will.
Oh God, there's two of them.
Come on, guys. Kill that free fire.
You're dead.
Beg for mercy.
Okay,
You'll never
two
lick
more.
this.
Easy. Dead. I think this is the last guy. Yeah! With the fortress cleared, it felt like Sauron leaving Middle-earth, and all of the evil had been banished from these lands. So it was time to go back to the village and let the season come to its natural end. Winter had begun to dust over Oxbow. I knew this would mark the final season of my journey here. I spent my days completing the last houses, adding some final touches, and then returning to Piastovia. There, Gilbert had been officially installed as the new Castellan, and as an honor, I received a monument blueprint, which I would later place in the center of our village. Looking back at our achievements, compared to where we began, is remarkable. I started this playthrough as an unknown outsider and became the leader of a thriving village. And seeing this settlement come alive proves that consistency leads to great accomplishments. Life presents us with constant challenges and obstacles, but overcoming them is what makes us grow. And if this game has taught me anything, is that creating a lasting legacy requires achieving something significant. And we did. And before I conclude my playthrough, I would like to reveal that I can finally marry Mildreda. That's right, bitches. In between all of this drama, I've been trying to rizz up this woman, trying to figure out her personality type, running through different dialogues, giving her all kinds of gifts, and then finally reaching 100% affection. So it was just time to marry her. This was a perfect way to end it, on a high and positive note. And for those of you who reached the end of this video, I'd like to give a big thank you for sticking through the entire thing. Please do leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.